This is a presentation of National Streaming Sports. Over 20 podcasters, 70 weekly shows, and a 3.4-star rating on Roku TV.
I don't know, Jack. It's a big decision.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying space.
Pittsburgh at Buffalo.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought I was right. So anyway,
Yeah, Mac, you're really interested in these playoffs.
so
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Jack, we made it through another week. We're on Friday and the Mac and Jack Sports Show on National Streaming Sports. To get National Streaming Sports, folks, the Roku channel, all you got to do is download the free Roku app, channel search National Streaming Sports, and there we are. We're right there. Us and all the great shows that come on this network. Of course, joining me as always, the great Jack Hirsch with his knowledge, his opinions, his commentary. Whether you want to hear it or not, he's going to give it to you. So anyways, Jack, we were talking before the show. And the Olympics, I imagine the opening ceremony, from what you tell me, is tonight. I didn't even realize that. I knew it's coming soon.
I made you talk about the Olympics, Mac. You didn't even want to talk about it. You didn't even want to mention it on this show. But it's kicking off tonight with the opening ceremonies. It's going to be on NBC tonight. How many people are going to be watching? You want to know what I think, Mac, what the Olympics have come down to now? Who's going to be watching it more? Non-sports fans. For example, a baseball fan. You have a choice to turn into a Yankee Red Sox game, for example, or watch the athletes march into the stadium, in Paris. What are you going to do? Chances are you're going to watch the baseball game. I hate to say it, but the non-sports fan like certain sports generically. They like to watch swimming. They like to watch gymnastics, certain sports like that. But the Olympics has some storylines too. And I got to admit, when the Olympics start winding down, it's 16 days it goes on. But when it starts winding down towards the end, I start warming up to it as it goes along, little by little. And then I kind of regret not paying more attention to it in the beginning. They start off like with the swimming events, and then when the swimming events come to an end, I say, I wish I watched a little more of that, learned a little more about the athletes, like Katie Ledecky and so on.
Jack, listen, and we'll bring Keith in here. Keith Engel from TGI Sports. Good morning, Keith. Glad to have you here. I think that the Olympics is handled so wrong now, as opposed to when it was way back when. And of course, we have so much other sports going on at the same time, which we didn't have back then. So sports fans are going to tune into it. I'll tell you what would give the Olympics a big boost. Keith, the original Olympics held in Greece, they all competed naked. Now, I think that might increase the viewership, but of course they're not going to do that. I'm talking foolishly right now, folks. You know I am. But listen, different time zones, more channels, more sports going on. The Olympic viewership has dropped. But as we discussed on Wednesday, Keith, the only thing changed since the last Olympics, and I don't know if Jack knows this or not, is that we have legalized gambling across the country. And there's going to be a record number of bets made in this country on the Olympics. And they're thinking basketball, soccer, and tennis.
And degenerate gamblers will bet on anything, so not just those four things either. And that'll increase viewership too amongst people who normally wouldn't watch. I am curious, what sports are being played that weren't being played 20 years ago that they're competing against? It's baseball. What else is in full swing right now? Baseball. That's it.
Yes, that's it.
I mean,
the NBA, the NFL.
40 years ago was all baseball.
I mean, they're even covering flag football now on ESPN. Flag football, the most boring. Well, not the most boring sport to watch, but one of the most boring sports to watch. It's fun to play. I've played it.
No, golf will be back in the Olympics as well, too. So you'll be able to cover boring sports.
So let's get to.
I still have some interest, though. I mean, I'm interested in what the basketball team does. I'm interested in track and field. I want to see if Simone Biles can go out with 3, 4 gold medals. I mean, it's I won't sit there and watch hours and hours and hours of the Olympics like I might have 40 years ago, but I don't do anything the way I did it 40 years ago. So
there are some interesting track and field athletes in there from the United States. I've seen that in parting. So, but I kind of agree with Jack. I mean, if I have a choice to watch the opening ceremony or the Yankees Red Sox, I'm watching Yankee Red Sox.
I don't care that much about the opening ceremonies and such. The competitions I will tune in when it's interesting. Katie Ledecky is one I should have mentioned too. I heard Jack mention when I was coming in. There's some really interesting storylines here, I think.
All right, so let's get to the Major League Baseball. We had a no-hitter thrown yesterday by Dylan Cease. The San Diego Padres, one of the Cy Young candidates. This is, of course, going to help that. He struck out, I think it was 11 batters along the way. It's only the second one this year. So I remember last year there was no hitters all over the place. This year, not so many. So, the funny thing about this, the no hitters, you could walk 9 guys and still get a no hitter. I mean, it's not a perfect game by any means, but it's still a hard thing to do, especially go 9 innings, because a lot of pitchers just don't go 9 innings anymore.
Well, that's the whole thing, which is surprising. Last year there was a bunch, but there was also a bunch of multi-pitcher no-hitters. The one pitcher no-hitter is something that is disappearing before our eyes. Paul Skeens just 2 weeks ago was cheated, in my mind, out of a chance at his place in the history books. 99 pitches. That's all he threw that day. Threw 6 pitches in the inning before they took him out. I was impressed that they let him go. 114 pitches he threw yesterday. There was a time where that wasn't a lot of pitches for a Major League Baseball pitcher. And, we talk about the Olympics and sports changing. No sports change more than baseball and not caring about things that were important before. No hitters have always been an important part of the game and a historic part of the game, but we don't give pitchers a chance to do it. And I'm glad the Padres gave Dylan Cease a chance to do that.
Good morning, Dave. Good morning, David. Glad to have you aboard today.
Okay, sure.
So there was a few trades yesterday. The biggest one was Randy Arozarena. Thank you. I've always had a problem pronouncing.
I do too.
The outfielder goes to Seattle. They needed some offensive. Somebody offensively contributing to their runs, of course. He's having kind of an off year this year a little bit, but he's still an upgrade for Seattle in the outfield and on offense, which they needed. There was the Mets require relief pitcher Phil Maron from Tampa Bay. The Red Sox acquire 3 relief pitchers, Zach Litter from Texas. They also got Isaiah Campbell and Austin Davis. They're looking to strengthen their bullpen in Boston, which I've been following the Red Sox a lot this year. I follow the Red Sox because I'm from this area. So they're building up their bullpen. The Mets do something. The Yankees haven't done anything yet. And I know there's a couple big relievers out there that might be on the block that maybe they'll be going after. And the Yankees, let's face it, they have quite a few holes, as was shown by the Subway Series when the Yankees got swept. Derek Cole got hammered. These are two teams, guys, that are going in opposite directions since June 14th. The Yankees have one of the worst records, three of the teams' worst records in the league right now, and the Mets have the best record since June 14th. And, Jack and me are talking. We're going to have to start talking about more Mets here because the Mets, they're doing things and they're playing really well ball. Lindor's hitting home runs. Alonso hits his 20th against the Yankees. I mean, the team is offensively playing really well.
Well, they're in the playoffs if they were to start today. Unfortunately for the Mets, they don't. They still need some help. I'm not sure their pitching can hold up through the second half of the season or last third of the season, however you want to look at it. The Yankees are fortunate that the Orioles went in the stinker at about the same time they did, or they'd be out of the division race by now. Still positioned well for a wild card, but this team's not going anywhere as it's presently constructed. Pitching is lacking. We talked about the lack of depth in the lineup, and it's only getting worse. You can't win with two guys, trying to carry your ball club. And we got guys who we keep sticking out there like Trent Grisham, who doesn't hustle. He doesn't hustle. And all I've heard about him coming over here was his defense. And I've seen that be lackluster, and he doesn't hustle on the field besides. We got to stop throwing these guys out there and not holding them accountable. As far as the Yankees trading prospects, people talk about Mason Miller, who broke his finger yesterday, by the way. So that's I think on his left hand, not his pitching hand, but they're not going to give up Spencer Jones. And every single team, for any player of any consequence, is going to be asking for Spencer Jones. And they're not going to trade him or Dominguez. So, I don't see the Yankees getting any big names in here. You'll see a plethora of relief pitchers, as you already mentioned, get traded in the next week. But I don't know where. It looks like Vlad Guerrero's off the market now for the Blue Jays. I don't know where the big names are going to come from. Yankees keep talked about with Skubal from Detroit, who I love, but they're not going to give up the prospects, and the Tigers would be crazy to trade that kid. So.
Well, I mean, if you're going to go all in, like I heard said they're going to do, they're going to have to give up some prospects, Keith. You can't get nothing for nothing. And, listen, third base, terrible. LeMahieu is having a terrible year. He's batting 183 right now. Second base, big question mark. First base, big question mark. And their relief staff, as Jack said, they need an ace reliever to help out Holmes there, a closer. And I don't know.
There's not one starting pitcher I would count on right now in a big moment. I mean, Cole. I'm wondering if Cole's not still hurt in some way, shape, because he does not look like himself at all. Heels come back to earth. There's hopefully you come back. Anchor the staff right now.
Well, Garrett Cole has been struggling, and he was thought of as a short thing when he, came back. And he's had enough time to shake the rust. So it's a little bit of a concern. He's really having a down year and has got to get it together. It's easy to say, well, they can make a deal, do this, do that. You're not going to give up your elite prospects. You're not, for rentals. Sometimes it's the players you have. You wait for them to come back and hope Stanton's going to be back. That gives you another bat you don't have to trade for. That helps your lineup. Anthony Rizzo, you can't count on, but you hope he comes back and can kind of regain some of his form, which would be better than you have now. When Ben Rice came up, he was outstanding in the beginning, but he kind of came down back to earth right now. And, Gleyber Torres is starting to come around somewhat. So sometimes you just got to live with the guys you have. You have no choice. Absolutely no choice. You'd be foolish to give up elite prospects because you're panicking.
Well, let's take a look at that. First of all, that's exactly what the Yankees did last year. They said, no, we're not doing anything. They held on to Cabrera. Cabrera, he was a top prospect. He's not doing anything this year. I mean, a prospect compared to a player. I mean, what do you want to do? We all complained that the Yankees they have holes, but yet we're not going to give up top prospects. As I said, you got to give something to get something. So people that right now that are complaining that Cashman doesn't do anything, And he doesn't do anything this year either because he doesn't. You don't want him to give up top prospects.
He
Can't
will
complain.
do something before the trade deadline. I'm confident on that. Okay, that'll be my prediction.
And who says he doesn't do anything? He does the wrong things. That's the problem. I mean,
Last year he stood pat, Keith. He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything at the trade deadline.
Before he brought in Joey Gallo and traded 5 guys who, 3 of which have been very productive for the Rangers.
That's exactly the point. You don't want to panic and make a deal and bring in a Joey Gallo type and then give up a prospect who you're going to look at 2 years later and say, oh, what a terrible deal. Look who we gave up for so-and-so. You want to avoid that scenario. And I'll say this for Brian. Brian Cashman thinks long term. The Yankees are lucky to have him. And let me tell you why. He doesn't think short term only because he's not scared of losing his job, because he knows his job's going to be there, so he could serve the Yankee draft better, thinking long range.
Well, then I don't want to hear no Yankee fan complain. I don't want to hear if that's what you guys think. If you think we shouldn't give up top prospects because that's the only way you're going to get a good player. You're not going to get a good player by giving up a player. You got to give up your top prospects to get a good player. So whether he made a mistake with Joey Gallo or not, it happens. It happens. But if you're not going to – but wait, Keith, let me finish. If you're not going to – if you as a fan are not willing to give up your top prospects to get a ace closer or to get a better third baseman or to do this, then don't complain about it next year.
Ace closer. The time to complain was in the offseason when Josh Hader was available. That's when Yankee fans should have argued, sign Josh Hader. You have Clay Holmes, as the middle reliever, and Hader's the closer, and you basically build around them. Now's not the time.
I love being on Jack's side. This is awesome.
I'm just saying. So would they have to have given up top prospects to get Hader?
No,
he was a free agent.
No.
All right. I'm just asking. I'm asking.
Money. And you want to trade for a closer who are, by the way, the most volatile players on your roster all the time. They want to trade for Mason Miller, for instance. What's his track record before this year? Very little experience here. You want to trade your top prospect for a guy who's going to come here, and I'm going to say it again, Jack won't agree with me. Playing in New York's a whole lot different playing in Oakland.
Oh, my God.
Spencer Jones for Mason Miller.
Mario,
let me tell you.
Wait, Jack. I'll let you go. Mariano Rivera did not start in New York. He came from another team, Keith.
No, he came from the minor leagues. What team did he come from? He was in the Yankees.
Wasn't he a starting pitcher over in KC or something like that before? I think he was. I think he was a starting pitcher.
You could fact check me. There's no way he was a starting pitcher in the major leagues outside of the New York Yankees. He was a starter in the leagues. The Yankees converted him to a setup guy behind John Wetland in 1995.
I'm almost positive he was starting. He started as a starting pitcher. But anyway, he was. He did come through the Yankee farm system, Keith.
Yes.
You know what I mean? All right. So anyway, I listen.
Everybody can't play here.
I don't listen. I don't necessarily agree with what you're saying. I really don't.
That's fine, but top prospects, I need top return, not Joey Gallo's, not Mason Miller's.
Mason Miller doesn't he have 16 saves this year? So
I don't care how many saves he's got. He's got more strikeouts. He's got like twice the number of strikeouts as he has any pitch, too. That means nothing to me. I don't know what he'll do in New York. He doesn't have a track record beyond this year, really. And you want to trade your top prospect for a guy who's just a crapshoot. Now, if it's a guy who's a superstar, yeah, I'll throw all my top prospects in if I'm getting, Jose Altuve in his prime to play second base and replace the hole we got there now in Torres. Yeah, but not just to make a trade, not just for sake of making trades. You don't trade your top.
He's the best closer one of the best closers available, Keith.
That's not setting the bar terribly high, by the way. Again, there's not a lot of
listen. If he finishes it with 30 saves this year and 30 saves next year, wherever he is, okay. You can
automatically.
Let's get back.
Hold on. You can't end on that little note. You cannot sit there and say if he saves 40 games in Oakland next year that he would have saved 40 games in New York.
I can listen, Keith. Is he going up against? Is Oakland going playing the same teams we play?
No, no, not to the same number of games. No.
Is he going against major league batters, Keith?
Are they? Yes. Come on, Mac.
What do you? Listen.
The games don't have the same magnitude. The games aren't of the same magnitude. Come on.
Who else? Well, let me ask you this thing, Keith. Oakland A's have a terrible team right now, right? They're amongst the worst in the league right now. How do you know where he can pitch? If you don't try? How do you know?
I don't know. I'm just.
So you're willing to say if Mason Miller goes to the Mets or goes to the Dodgers or goes to a good team that has a lot of people there, that has a big limelight, and he gets 30, 40 saves, he couldn't have done it with the Yankees.
None of those teams are giving up their top prospect for him either. I can tell you right now.
Well, I'm glad you know that, but I'm asking you if he goes to the Boston Red Sox and he has 30 saves this year and next year, and he couldn't pitch in Yankee Stadium. You're telling me.
How many guys have you watched come in here and just stink it up when they get here?
How many guys have come in here and played really well, Keith?
Not as many as stunk it up. I can tell you right now. All I got to do is go back to Ed Whitson, Steve Trout, and Sonny Gray more recently. These guys come in here. We trade a lot for them. Mike Phelps. We traded Jay Buhner. We talked about we don't trade top prospects. Jay Buhner gets traded away for Mike. Was it Mike Phelps? I might have his name wrong, but I know his name was Phelps. I'm going back a ways, but still, we have a history.
David Cone, Roger Clemens, David Wells. I mean, I could do the same. We could play this all day.
I didn't trade anything for any of those guys.
I'm just saying they're pitching. Wait, they're pitching, and you're saying that pitchers can't pitch in Yankee Stadium. Some pitchers, and you're giving me all the bad examples. I just gave you examples of pitchers that came from other teams that pitched well in Yankee Stadium.
Okay, you think Mason Miller's on the level of those three guys?
I don't know. He's a kid. I don't know, Keith.
We can agree to disagree.
Okay. All right. Juan Soto says next year in free agency, he wants to play on a team that's competing for, the World Series or the playoffs every year. So that was the only thing that he said about next year. The Mets have told teams interested in Pete Alonso, he's staying with the Mets. He hit his 20th home run against the Yankees. So he's at least with them for a year. I don't know what's going to happen after that. But it looks like to me that the Mets are trying to get ready for the playoffs. And Pete Alonso, whether he's a great base hitter or not, he still has a lot of power and he can drive and run. So that's probably their best option at first base right now. So I'll tell you the truth, I hope Pete Alonso stays with the Mets. I really do. I think he's one of those faces of the franchises that could stay with the Mets his whole career if they take care of him. So we'll see what happens with that. Alex Cora, Red Sox manager, after complaining about last year's trades too, has just signed an extension for 3 years. One of the better managers in the league, you guys think?
Yes. Yes.
Jack? Yeah, Keith, take it, Keith.
No, he is one of the better managers in the league. In fact, there's been whispers of when the Red Sox were expected to do poorly and he was going to potentially be let go, that if the Yankees moved on from Boone, Alex Cora would be at the top of their list to bring in here to replace him. That's obviously not going to happen because he's not going to lose his job. He's done a great job there this year. He's done a great job since he's been there. I mean, the Red Sox have been better than the Yankees going further in a postseason, not consistently, maybe. Yankees have great regular seasons. We know that. But yes, Alex Cora is a very, very good manager. I think he'll be in Boston a while longer.
What's interesting, he signed for 3 years, $21,750,000. That comes out to $7,250,000 a year. And that's high for manager Major League Baseball. These managers were getting vastly underpaid. And I know the Red Sox like Cora They didn't want him to become a free agent at the end of the year. But this is interesting to see whether this is going to raise the market on what managers get paid. There are a couple of managers out there that get paid less than $1 million a year. That's ludicrous.
Well, Craig Counsell reset the market when he signed with the Cubs this past winter. So that's
about $5 million a year, $6 million a year.
He's at like $8 million,
He
Counsell.
did get $8 million a year. Okay, but
So
yes, certain managers command that type of respect, but they're not that many. But the ones that, become available, you really want to pry away from another club that badly, they could command that type of money. But I was a little surprised Cora got that much, considering what the managers market, is for what they get paid.
The Red Sox are playing. Some people think they're playing a little above their head this year. They really got a good young team over there. NBA news: Tom Thibodeau signs a 3-year extension after bringing the Knicks to the second seed last year. Got by the first round. I think this is it. I think if Tom Thibodeau doesn't get the Knicks to the championship in these 3 years, I think that's it for Tom Thibodeau in New York. Even with that vote of confidence, I still think that he's got to prove that he can get the team all the way to the championship.
I agree. I mean, that would give him 8 years or 9 years that he'd been here. I think if he makes it to the end. I mean, there's no guarantee he even makes it to the end of the contract if they don't play up to expectations. But I think this is a smart move. I mean, you don't want to leave coaches in lame duck statuses because it's a never a good situation for the players who are already making, 10 times what the coach. So, but
I don't go for this lame status talk. If someone has a contract and they have 1 year left to coach on the contract, team's not obligated to extend the guy. Why? Let him play out the year, then sign him. And for the coach, he could become a free agent. Then if you're scared of losing him as a free agent at the end of that year, you really like him a lot, then you extend him. I understand that. But this lame duck stuff is so overrated. He plays the contract out, then you re-sign him at the end of the year, once again, unless you're truly scared of losing him.
In some situations, I would agree with you, right? If you need to prove yourself. But if you're a proven coach, I mean, when you don't sign a guy to an extension, let him run out his contract, you're sending a message that you don't have confidence in that coach to be the guy for the future. And it does have an effect on your team, in my mind. Again, it depends on the situation. If it's a guy who hasn't earned anything, well, then sure, let him play out or coach out his contract and see how it plays out. But if you got a guy that is a veteran coach and you don't show confidence in him by extending him, it can permeate through your locker room. So,
yeah, but he signed a contract for a length of time, and he's obligated to fulfill that, and you're obligated to honor. To any veteran coach you're going to let go of, there's always going to be time on his contract. You're always going to have to pay him for not working with that logic. So Tom Thibodeau, if you want to fire him 2 years into his 3-year contract, you want to move on from him, you got to pay him for a full season for doing nothing. It makes no sense to me. The only way, once again, you extend the guy if you don't want to lose him or you're very, very happy with him and you want him to be there long term. That's fine. But then I don't want to hear this lack of confidence if you don't give him the money. Come on. Again,
it's about perception. I'm not saying anything about paying guys, not paying guys. It's about perception you give your ball club when you leave a guy in a lame duck status. I mean,
the ball club doesn't give a darn, Keith. The players are going to play just as hard.
Are they?
And they don't know that. You know what? The only time it could have an effect, if they know for sure the coach isn't coming back. They know for sure. Then maybe they'll think, okay, I don't have a future with this guy. Then I can understand. Maybe it would have an effect. Maybe. But I don't want to hear uncertainty, this and that. They're going to play just as hard regardless of the status.
Because we've seen guys really busted after they get a big long-term contract, and they're going to bust it for a guy who doesn't have a long-term contract. We've seen plenty of instances where that doesn't happen. If I'm a lamed-up manager, I want all my players on lamed-up contracts too, because that's my best bet to get the best out of them for that year.
I think any coach on LeBron's team is a lame duck coach. I mean, soon as they sign him, he's a lame duck coach.
Right.
He's on the clock soon as he signs as the head coach. So it doesn't hurt that Jalen Brunson is one of Tom Thibodeau's biggest backers. I mean, he talks highly of Thibodeau all the time, and your star talking about Tom Thibodeau and backing Tom Thibodeau definitely helps that situation. Joel Embiid says he's the most hated NBA player in the league, and he doesn't know why. So I guess he doesn't listen to what he says or play back or looks at his own tweets or whatever as he tells LeBron he's not as good as he was. He's not the same player. That Tatum is, Tatum is the beneficiary of a great team. That's why they won, and Philadelphia can't win because they didn't build a super team around, of course, Embiid. And this guy even has the Philly sports guy Pags and Gene over on Wire to Wire, huge Philadelphia fans, telling him to shut up. And there's some players that just I don't think get it. I don't know, but anyway.
Misunderstood athletes is, again, Jack doesn't like to hear about lame duck contracts. I'm tired of hearing about misunderstood athletes. There's something at the root of that almost always. I'm sure there are times where guys have been misportrayed. Jack, you wrote about boxing for a long time. How many boxers did you cover that didn't earn the reputation they had, good or bad? I can't imagine it's that big a percentage.
Yeah, it's always perception. Like when Joel Embiid says he's the most hated player in the NBA, no one thought of Joel Embiid as the most hated player, but now we do. He put it out there, and he made us aware. Oh, he thinks he's hated. Is he the most hated player in the NBA? Now he's part of the discussion. The same way when Pedro Martinez said about the Yankees a couple of decades ago, "Oh, they're my daddy." Yeah. He opened up. The fans loved that comment, the Yankee fans. So they started yelling, "Who's your daddy?" Yes. You put something out there for someone, and Joel Embiid put it out there now. He's going to get booed when he comes to LA. The Knicks fans aren't going to have much love for him because they think he's a dirty player. And he's kind of casting himself in the role of the villain. Does it help him? No, it doesn't help him because he's going to make max money regardless. He's a great player. It helps guys like a Patrick Beverley type who's playing in Israel, by the way, this year. But it helps guys like that elevate their status and maybe make a little more money. But it does nothing for Joel Embiid.
Just like all of us, we don't get in trouble till we open our mouth, right? So we're fine until then.
Yeah, I
live by the credo that says, it's better to be thought an idiot than to open up your mouth and remove all doubt. So that's kind of how I.
And the Celtics are just the Boston Celtics are just throwing money at anybody. I mean, they just paid Sam Hauser, who's just basically a bench player, a rotation player, $45 million, 4-year, $45 million extension. And the Celtics, who are now one at an unbelievable pay scale, they're for sale. So they're trying to sell the major shares of the Celtics to somebody with this unbelievable payroll. I mean, I don't know.
$11 million a year is not bad.
For a bench player, Jeff? For a bench player.
If he's a valuable bench player, which Hauser is to a degree, it's not that bad. It's not like they're paying him $25 million a year. Keep him on. Hartenstein signed with OKC for $29 million a year, 3-year contract.
Their total payroll, Jack, is over $1 billion.
Well, there's a cap they have.
I'm just telling you, their payroll's over $1 billion right now with all the new all the extensions they gave to all their players, Tatum, Brown, Derek White. Now they're giving their bench players millions and millions of dollars.
Which is not the way you usually operate when you're trying to sell your team. You're usually trying to pare payroll down, and this is an odd way to go about selling your team for sure.
Yes, the consortium that controls the Celtics announces that it would sell all its shares 2 weeks after winning the championship, and they're just paying everybody. I think they're worth.
Keep in mind, the Celtics aren't just a normal team; they're a brand.
Agree.
A couple of teams are brands. The Lakers are brand. The Celtics are brand. Even if the team starts playing poorly, it's kind of a brand name. So as long as they contend, they're going to be, the top of the heap of the NBA.
I mean,
as far as marketability goes.
I definitely agree with it. They're worth $5.2 billion supposedly right now. You're paying $1 billion of that dollars out to contract.
Well, it's 4.2 billion when you take into consideration the money owed in salaries.
Right. And I mean, like you said, Keith, that's very strange. Somebody that wants to sell their team has that payroll, because you take over owner, who's going to pay that payroll? It's going to be, of course, you. Real quick before you go, Keith, I know you got to get going. College sports, first week, you got Clemson against Georgia.
Huge.
Clemson is number one. I mean, Georgia's number one. Clemson is ranked 15 right now. Of course, that will change eventually. Probably even before the season starts. With the playoffs, I mean, you can afford a little bit of a loss. You still can get in the playoffs. Clemson and Georgia both still could get in there, but it might affect where they're seated in the playoffs if they both get in, Keith.
Without a doubt. I mean, it's a bigger game. This is probably a bigger game for Clemson than it is for Georgia, because Dabo's been down. Clemson's been down the last few years because of his approach. He won't buy into NIL and the transfer portal like a lot of other programs have, and the perception is that Clemson's been really down, where they won 10 games last year. It's not like they were horrible, but just a big game for Clemson, I think, because the ACC is going to probably get one bid. They're probably only going to get the champion in. So if they lose this game and they win the conference championship game, then they'll be in the playoff. But they may not get a bye, or I'm sorry, they would get the top seeds are going to be the power conference winners. But if they were to lose the conference tournament or playoff game and have two losses, they're likely not going to get to the playoff at all. So big game. It's start the season. Great game.
No doubt. So Keith Engel, TGI Sports, he's going to be going over, starting his show right after us. Keith, have a great day. It was fun debating with you, my friend.
See you Sunday. Should be on Sunday. I'll be in Mystic for the weekend. But as long as I got a good enough internet feed, I'll be on.
Excellent. We'll see you Sunday, Keith. Have a good one.
Okay, guys.
So, Jack, in going to the NFL right now, the San Francisco 49ers find themselves in a spot that a lot of teams do, right? They have a really good team, and now the players want to get paid. Dallas is in that position, but the 49ers have been a little bit more successful than them, of course. So Brandon Ayuk is out. Now they're all pro Hall of Fame offensive tackle Trent Williams wants to get paid. They got Deebo Samuels coming up. And, of course, Brock Purdy is going to get paid, too, very shortly. As a GM, I imagine you prioritize some the players above others. Is Brandon Ayuk in that conversation with those other three?
No, absolutely not. But you do want to keep him. He is a valuable piece, and he's really a good receiver. But you can't, in the modern NFL, you just can't keep all the guys. And if you do, you're going to hurt yourself at other positions, your mid-range salary positions, right, where you won't be able to afford to pay that. I mean, Deebo Samuel, McCaffrey, Kittle, and the big one, Brock Purdy. Purdy, they're going to have to deal with his contract, coming up next year. It's going to be a major issue. Brock Purdy's got paid virtually nothing. It's a bargain. They're getting him for very little money, not that much even over minimum wage, in the NFL. And why would Brock Purdy want to give the 49ers any type of home team discount? It makes no sense from his end, because he would have been playing for them for like 3 years, starting 2 years at a very elite level. And this would be the third year he would be at an elite level, assuming he plays that way, for virtually no money.
Yep.
So why on earth would he want to give them a discount? He's going to try to get every penny he can out of them, and justifiably so. He's already made the sacrifice. I love the way these teams come to players, take a cut in pay, do it for the team, give us a discount so we could get other players, so we could contend. And they want to point to the model of Tom Brady, who always used to do that. It worked at New England. But Tom Brady's wife at the time, Giselle, made more money than he did. He could
Very true.
afford to do that. I mean, if Travis Kelce hypothetically marries Taylor Swift, and the Chiefs come to Kelce and ask him to take a discount for the team, he could afford to do it under that scenario very easily without even blinking if he wanted to. So the 49ers are going to have to make some hard decisions. Ayuk, I think, is one of them, but they can milk it out. They could just let the guy play on this current contract and do nothing and let him be unhappy. And the guy has no alternative but to play well, because if he doesn't, he hurts his market value in trying to get a contract when he's a free agent.
Agree. And he is a young player. You would, as you said, you would want to keep him. But he's looking for money, Justin Jefferson money or something, and he's not going to. I don't know if he gets that or not, but I mean, he is a good young player, and you would want to sign.
And no one's going to give up a number one draft choice for him either. They don't do that in the NFL. No team is going to step forward right now and give up a number one draft choice. It's just not happening.
Not for a year, Jack. Not for a year. They got it's got to be a trade and sign, maybe, for them to do that, but not for 1 year. They're not giving up a number one draft.
A team, right? If they could sign them long term and they're comfortable with it, which is doubtful that any other team would be comfortable signing them long term. A team that maybe is a winning team and is going late in the first round, like a Kansas City Chiefs team, contending, even though they got Xavier Worthy, wide receiver they drafted. It's always a possibility, but it's doubtful. Notice teams don't give up number one draft choices in trades. They just don't do it. And they're not going to do it, in this case.
They have to be an established star. I mean, a star for a few years or whatever. I mean, Ayuk's had one great year so far, and that's it. So who knows? A big training camp thing. They're trying to pin down Mike Tomlin, who's the starting quarterback. They're not going to do that. He told you. He said Russell Wilson's number one, and they said how many reps would Fields get? He said as many as appropriate. Of course, that changes because Wilson has a strained calf. They're going to be careful with him. Fields gets all the snaps. Jack, I think all these people saying that Justin Fields is going to be starting next year is very premature. I don't care when it starts, I think Justin Fields will be in there in some kind of wildcat formation where he can run or throw the ball. I think they'll put packages in for him. But I think if Russell Wilson is healthy, he's their best option right now. It's not Justin Fields yet. I think he still has to work on some of his techniques, being a quarterback in the pocket.
Yeah, I mean, you said it best the other day, Mac, about quarterbacks who don't have the greatest offensive line. If you're really that good, you're still going to find a way to thrive. You're still going to find. Justin Fields had 3 years with the Chicago Bears. I don't want to hear about they had difficulty with their offensive line. Justin Fields showed glimmers of being a potentially good quarterback. Right. He had 3 years to prove himself. He didn't quite do it. That's why the Bears moved on from him. If Justin Fields is truly a franchise quarterback, the Bears would have kept him. They're not going to invest 3 years in the number one draft choice. They would have kept him, but they traded him. And the best the Bears could get was a third-round draft choice. Third round for Justin Fields, not a number one. So if teams thought Justin Fields was that good, don't you think, Mac, some team would have offered a better package than what the Bears got from the Steelers? But in fairness to the Bear organization, they did something very rare in sports. They asked Justin Fields where he wanted to go. He said the Steelers, and they accommodated him. That was a classy move.
I agree.
But the point is, he's a very good running quarterback, Justin Fields. But beyond that, he's not proven. I don't know what the Steelers fans expect. Russell Wilson seems to be past his best. Unless he could have a resurgence, he seems to be way past his best. There's no easy solution here. I get the feeling between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, in 2 years, someone else is going to be the Steeler quarterback.
Possible.
besides
That's
those two.
possible. That's possible. It's plausible, Jack. I mean, I think that Justin Fields has potential, but to get that potential out, it's going to take 1 or 2 years. And if they rush him in, it's going to be the same old Justin Fields. Not that Pittsburgh isn't a better team than Chicago. Pittsburgh is a better team than Chicago. There's no doubt about that in my mind. But they still, I think, if you want this guy to be your number one in the future, you can't rush him back. You can't just throw him on the field and say, let's go. I think Russell Wilson right now gives the Steelers a better chance.
Yeah, but Mike Tomlin won't hesitate to pull the plug on Russell Wilson if he's struggling and go to Justin Fields. But I'm going to tell you, when that happens, it might not yield results.
I agree. I agree with that. That would be a chance taken. Real quick, Jim Harbaugh says opening day of training camp is like being born. So I guess he remembers the feeling of being born. One thing about Jim Harbaugh, and a lot of people, some people that have been guests on the show, kind of say, he didn't do so well his last couple of years or something. And let me tell you, Jim Harbaugh took a San Francisco 49 team that had 8 consecutive losing seasons, brought him to 3 championships in a row, going to the Super Bowl once, and his record with the 49ers is 44-19-1. Pretty good record, Jack. I don't know what people say. He kind of got bad or something and went to Michigan, or he fell off a little bit. I don't think he really did. I think he coached really well for the 49ers there.
He was a successful NFL coach with the Niners. And then in college, he got off to a little bit of a slow start, and eventually they won the national championship in Michigan last year. He can coach. Good coach. I think he's going to struggle this year with the Chargers, because I think the Chargers, if they're not rebuilding, they're kind of retooling. They have some nice pieces on defense. Obviously, they have an elite quarterback in Justin Herbert. They got him help in the draft, an offensive lineman in Joe Alt, who should have a heck of an NFL career. But I think this is kind of a transition year for Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers. I don't think they're going to come in and make the playoffs the first year.
I don't think so either, Jack. I think he's in a good spot where he has a team that could be around 500 and still rebuild, right? And still get his players moving in and taking over for the eventual thing. I think he's in a good spot right now as a head coach too. San Diego isn't he's not like he's taking over the Carolina Panthers or a team that has no chance this year. He would have to go into instant rebuild. He can kind of fool around and still have a decent season this year. And I think that's a good place for him to be as a head coach anyway. So let's take a look at this week in history. Jack, I want to start off. I was going to go to all of them, but I want to start off with Pete Rose, 1978, sets the NL record, hitting in 38 consecutive games. And before the show, Jack told me about that. I didn't know. Jack, some news on Pete Rose.
Yeah, HBO just came out with a 4-part documentary. I actually watched, one of the shows yesterday, coincidentally. Normally you mention Pete Rose, I'd say, Mac, it's kind of old news, dealing, the Pete Rose situation, but it was brought to life once again. A troubled individual to me. I mean, Pete Rose just doesn't get it. The way he acts and what he does. He's very erratic person. He was an addicted gambler. And the thing about Pete Rose, I mean, him not being in the Hall of Fame, it's unjust. You want to ban him from baseball, okay. He should have been eligible for the Hall of Fame all along. That's a farce. Major League Baseball was so hypocritical. They allowed him to get inducted into the Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame, but not the one in Cooperstown. Think of that. Think of the hypocrisy. And think of the hypocrisy now, Major League Baseball, that promotes gambling. They promote gambling. And did Pete Rose make a mistake betting on his own team? Yeah, he did, but Pete Rose mentioned a good point. He said, don't compare me to Shoeless Joe Jackson, who was banned for life, because Jackson was banned supposedly for throwing a game for his old team to lose, even though there's not evidence of that per se. We're not sure with Shoeless Joe Jackson. We know he had knowledge. Julius Joe Jackson's final numbers in that World Series in 1919 were good, but he seemed to make out in big situations. So there's suspicion. We could revisit that another time. But Pete Rose, the biggest mistake you bet on your own team, one, it's against the rules. It's understandable. They tell you can't bet, you're done. That's number one. And number two, if you're betting on your own team while you're the manager, you're making moves for the short term that could hurt your team because you want to win that game so badly. You're playing every game like it's the 7th game of the World Series if you got a bet there. And he acknowledges that now, Pete Rose. No, that wasn't a good thing in that sense. How many years has he been banned for, Mac? Give me a break. I mean, murderers don't serve as much time in certain cases.
Jack, like we discussed before, it's not only that. That's the main reason. Against the rules, blah. But his continuing lying about it. The Major League Baseball gave him a shot. And continue lying, acting a fool in public. Total foolishness. He got in trouble for tax evasion. I mean, he continually does things monetarily that hurt him. And whether it's betting or tax evasion or whatever, and his outright lie after lie after lie. They caught him dead and he still lied. And he had an opportunity maybe to get in the Hall of Fame. I don't feel sorry for Pete Rose at all because of that. I think Cincinnati Reds, I'm not sure if the MLB is in charge of the Cincinnati Red Hall of Fame. Maybe only the Cincinnati Reds are in charge of the Cincinnati Red Hall of Fame.
No, Major League Baseball, they could have put a stop to it.
Okay.
They could have, but they allowed him to get into the Cincinnati Red Hawks. Pete Rose was a pathological liar.
Yes, great ball.
Pathological liar. The way he'd convincingly say he didn't bet on baseball, he would lie, even with all the evidence mounting.
Yes.
Had Pete Rose come clean in the beginning, said, guys, I made a mistake. What they would have done was suspend him for a certain amount of time. He would have cooperated with Major League Baseball, gone talk to teams. Look, I really screwed up. I'm not in the game I love now because of what I did. You guys don't gamble on baseball. Don't make the mistake I did. And Major League Baseball would have been impressed with him. They would have brought him back after a few years.
I don't know.
No, that was the agreement originally with Bart Giamatti.
Right. I think, though, Jack, I think Major League Baseball might have made him go into some kind of program.
Yeah.
And right? I don't know if Pete Rose would have.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if Pete Rose would have done that. And that would have been
No, he wouldn't. He loved the gambling. He loved the action. He never felt he had a gambling problem. And he couldn't change Pete Rose as what he is. But the point is, Major League Baseball should have just banned him from participating in the game. But he should have been allowed in the Hall of Fame, but shouldn't have been allowed to manage, shouldn't have been allowed to hold positions. That would have been the proper thing to do. You know who Major League Baseball hurt? They hurt the future Hall of Famers, the guys who were getting in. Johnny Bench said it best years ago. When he got inducted in the Hall of Fame, he said, the first thing they said to me, John, congratulations. The second thing they said to me was, do you think Pete Rose belongs in the Hall of Fame? The idea these Hall of Famers had to keep answering questions about Pete Rose. Major League Baseball hurt them. They hurt their own sport by banning him from the Hall of Fame. They hurt it more so.
I for the most part agree with you. I really do. Let's look at a few other ones. Stan Musial hits for the cycle in 1949 as they beat the Dodgers 14-1. To me, one of the most untalked about Hall of Fame great players of all time. I don't want to hear this from St. Louis because St. Louis was a big and still is a very big baseball. They just ignore this guy. I don't know why. When they talk about the greatest hitters, greatest players of all time, Stan the Man Musial back then was talked about, but is no longer talked about. They talk about the Willie Mays and the Hank Aaron's and the Joe DiMaggios and the Mickey Mantles and the Ted Williams, and Stan the Man Musial gets left out of the discussion, Jack.
You make a great point when we talk about the greatest players, position players in Major League history. Stan Musial's name doesn't come up. I mean, we hear obviously, you know, the Mantles, the DiMaggio's. We might go back here to legends, obviously, like Ruth Gehrig. But Stan the Man Musial kind of got lost in time. I mean, and he was one of really the all-time greats.
Still is.
I mean, at the time, I don't want to say St. Louis was a small market team
Right.
because they're very big in the Midwest, very, very big. But, you know, another player that gets lost in time would be the brave third baseman Eddie Matthews. Hit like
Great
like 521 career homers, which was astounding at the time. Other players get lost in time, like a Harmon Killebrew. You know, we don't hear about Rod Carew when we talk about the greatest hitters of all time.
Not anymore. Not anymore, Jack.
I mean, in certain franchises, you kind of just wonder. Like if the Minnesota Twin fans had to vote the greatest Twin player of all time, who are they going to vote for? They're going to vote for Joe Mauer, who got in the Hall of Fame this year. Rod Carew is better, different position, you know, for the most part. But even though Mauer played first base late in his career, as did Carew, but you know.
Right, I agree. Let's see. Roberto Clemente in 1956 hit the only, Jack, in the park grand slam.
That was 1956?
1956, Jack.
Oh, I didn't realize when he came up that early in 56. Like, wow.
Unbelievable. In the
wow,
park.
I didn't realize that his rookie year. Because
I'm not sure,
Clemente, when the Pirates won the World Series in 1960, Clemente wasn't the star he later became. He was a heck of a player.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like Clemente was the man automatically. You know, he was one, you know, nice, very nice piece to that Pirates team's, you know, puzzle. And of course, 11 years after they won in 1960 and 1971, Clemente was the World Series MVP. He willed the Pirates, you know, in a sense, to winning the World Series.
Right. So unbelievable. The only time ever done. 1978 also, besides Pete Rose setting that record, Bob Lemon replaced Billy Martin as the Yankees manager, and they went on to win their second World Series in a row.
Yeah, you know, the Yankees had no choice in a sense but to replace Martin. Look, the Yankees were far behind the Red Sox, but the Yankees had won 5 games in a row. You usually won't fire a manager who's won 5 games in a row. If you're seriously thinking of firing him and they're starting to win, you kind of hold off a little bit. You know, he won 5 in a row. Let's not quite fire him yet. Let him continue a while longer. Then if he loses a couple of games, we can move on. But when, you know, Billy Martin obviously was a bit upset with Reggie Jackson because Reggie Jackson had been suspended, you know, that year for not bunting and then deciding he was going to bunt when the bunt sign was off. They talked to him, the reporters, a couple about Reggie Jackson, and he said about Jackson and Steinbrenner, one's a born liar, the other's convicted. He could have gotten away with calling Jackson a born liar. But George Steinbrenner was convicted, you know, something with campaign finance with the Richard Nixon campaign. You don't say that about the owner.
Yes.
You don't say that. So the GM, Al Rosen, he fired Billy Martin. He never liked Billy Martin, the GM, but he had Al Rosen, but he had his opening, and he brought Bob Lemon to the team. That was his old teammate with the Cleveland Indians, Bob Lemon.
Yep.
And Lemon was a quiet guy, soft-spoken, calm. And Bob Lemon was Billy Martin's pitching coach. He was his pitching coach. He was elevated to being, you know, manager.
Yeah, and I think even with Martin winning those five games in a row, it did take that turmoil and kind of turn it into a calm, and maybe they concentrated more on the field than all the rest of the nonsense. I think the Yankees needed it at that time. But not to take anything away from Billy Martin. Billy Martin is one of my favorite managers of all time.
I think they would have won with Billy, Lemon, whatever.
Yeah, right. They might have.
I think so. Yeah, you never know. Listen, you never know. It turned out. Listen, you know, it turned out to be a good move. But Lemon did a heck of a good job.
Yes, definitely. So anyway, folks,
But the
that's
next
it for
season,
our,
let me just add, Lemon got fired and Martin
He
replaced
did.
him during the
he
season.
did. That was a circus. That was a circus.
And then Lemon came back in 1981 as manager. And they
That's
went to
right.
the World Series and they blew the
Yeah.
Yankees a 2-0 lead to the Dodgers.
Yes. Anyway, folks, Friday show over. Thank you. Tomorrow, Sports Memories on the same channel here. Stay tuned next